Good morning, how are you? It is currently February, and I just took a look at my garlic. This is the big bowl of garlic I keep on my counter, and I've noticed some of them are starting to get a little bit dried out. So this generally means when the paper is a bit loose on the garlic that they are starting to sprout. So here's one that I just peeled. As you can see on the very bottom there's some roots starting, and the tip is turning green. This means it's time for me to start preserving the garlic. So I'm going to do this two ways. I'm going to dehydrate some and I'm going to freeze some. But either way, the first step is getting all these skins off of these bulbs. So this is just a bagel knife and I use it to score the outside skin and then break open the cloves. And I'm soaking them in water. If you soak them in water for about 15 minutes or so, the skins peel off much easier than if you're trying to do it just dry. You can also just smash these into like you normally would garlic, but I just find this is a little bit quicker. So that's about 6 pounds of garlic. I've just started. I'm running it through my meat grinder on the KitchenAid. You can also use a blender or you can just use a knife. I like using the meat grinder attachment because it gives a nice uniform mince to the garlic and it helps with drying and also with freezing. My number one preference would be to use a food processor. However, I don't have one of those and I do have a Ninja blender, but it is very cracked, so it's not ideal for this situation. Just while I'm grinding away here, no, this is not sped up. This does really go this quickly. It only took me maybe 10 minutes to do the whole batch. And just introduce myself if you're new here. My name is Tracy and this is my channel from the hut. I have a passion for preserving and growing food and most importantly, saving money wherever I can. So this is about 2 pounds left. That's what I'm going to freeze. I'm going to grind and freeze. And then this is 4 pounds of the minced. Okay, so I'm going to be using my oven, but it only goes down to 170. I'd like it a little cooler than that, but it is a convection, so it does have a fan going, which will help me. I have room to put 4 cookie sheets in, so we'll see how much this spreads out. So I want like a single layer. So you want this to dry out as evenly as possible. Thinking 2 scoops per. I think this will do about 3 sheets, and then just so I don't waste the oven space, I've got some frozen onions downstairs that I might as well make into onion powder at the same time. All right, I'll just smooth this all out and I'll get them in the oven. Alright, so that's 2 pounds of the minced garlic. I'm going to add olive oil. This stuff's going to be frozen. And this is how I'll throw stuff in soups or stews or stir fries, anything that's very convenient to have. Half a cup, I think I'll put about 3/4 of a cup. For 2 pounds. All right, that's it. And then I'll get these. Okay, so I'm gonna freeze these in ice cube trays. And I did go ahead and just spritz the bottom of these with some olive oil. The olive oil is all mixed in. I just find it freezes in a better brick that way. I've also will freeze them in bags and just roll them out flat and then just break off the pieces as I need them. But I do find this just makes it a little bit neater in the freezer. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get these filled up and get them frozen. All right, so these are ready for the freezer. So 2 pounds or 900 grams made 32 portions. So this works out to be about 28 grams per portion, which is about an ounce. I know not everyone would want that much garlic per recipe, but that's what works out for us. If you wanted a smaller quantity, you just freeze less in each quantity. So I'm going to throw these in the freezer, and then I'll bring you back in a few hours when our garlic. All right, so I just took these out of the oven. It's about 4 o'clock. So these were in the oven for about 6 hours at 170. Then I just turned the oven off and just let them continue drying. So this is the onions. These I'm probably just gonna leave as is. I will let them air dry overnight just to make sure there's no moisture at all, but you can tell they're ready because they just snap in half. The garlic came more out like granola. It is very dry, but what I'll do is I'll spread this out tonight and then I will grind it up in the morning in the blender. And then I will probably pop it back in the oven for about 15 minutes just to make sure it's super, super dry so we don't get any mold. But I had to stop what I was doing because I got some brown bread ready to go in the oven right now for supper. We're doing homemade baked beans, some hot dogs, and I've got some leftover mashed potatoes and some canned salmon that I'm gonna do some little fish cakes with. All right, so I'll keep you posted tomorrow. Okay, so here we are the next morning. It's very early. I think it's around between 5:30 and 6. My kids are just having their breakfast. So I thought that I'd get this ground up and then I can just let it dry out a little bit more in the oven once it's in powdered form. This is gonna be loud, guys. Warn ya. Okay. I'm using a Ninja blender here. It's seen better days. I've got it all taped up with tuck tape, but it does work and it does grind it up pretty fine. If you had a better blender, I'm sure you could get a even nicer grind on your garlic. So I'm just getting this ground up as fine as I can, and then I'm going to divide the powder up between these 3 aluminum baking containers. This is actually what I make when I make freezer meals. So I'll just divide it up between those 3, and then I'm going to dry it out in the oven just a little bit further to make sure I get all that moisture out. You really don't want any moisture left in because, of course, it can mold. Here is everything ground up and divided amongst the 3, and I'm going to go ahead and pop those in my 170-degree oven. Here's everything after it came out. So next day, it's about 8:30. So last night I put these in the oven after we ate supper and just let the oven cool down with them in them and did another grind. This is probably the coarsest grind. And then what I did after I ground them this morning was I did just pop them in the oven just with the oven light on just to make sure these are 100% dried out. So these 3 are all the garlic. I'm gonna store that in this old, I don't know what was in here, maybe sauerkraut. And then this is the onion. I just did a rough blend on that. I actually prefer my onion to be a little bit chunky, especially for burgers. And that I'll just store in the cupboard because I have just a tiny bit of that left. All right, so let's see how much this is going to create. All right, so I had to upgrade my jar because the other one was too small. This was also a sauerkraut jar, however, that I just washed out. So it's filling it just about to the tippity top here. And as you can see, I'll bring the camera over here. It's a total of 765 grams of garlic powder. And this is what I keep in my cupboard just for onion flakes. So I'm just tarring that to see how much new onion flakes I'm adding. I'm not too concerned about adding the old product to new because I dehydrated those onion flakes only a couple weeks ago. So I'm just going to add that on top and see what my total is. And that made 30 grams of dehydrated onion flakes. So I thought I'd go over the numbers with you. So my total electricity cost I worked out to be $2.46 for the entire oven. That was running it at 170 for 7 hours at the Nova Scotia rate at 17.54 cents a kilowatt hour. And so for 765 grams of garlic powder, it worked out to be 24 cents per 100 grams. And the onion flakes, just because I did a smaller quantity, worked out to $2.05 per 100 grams. It's important to mention here that I do not include a price for onions or garlic because that is all homegrown in my garden. And just to compare that to some prices from my local superstore, we have $1.33, $2.33 per 100 grams, and then the onion flakes are more expensive, $2.50 per 100 grams, and the smaller size works out to $4.36 per 100 grams. For the frozen garlic, it worked out to be about 19 cents per 100 grams because I just accounted for the cost of the olive oil. Of course, my preference is to use garlic fresh. However, when it is starting to show those green ends and it's starting to get ready to sprout, I find it's nice to be able to break it down and make it a little more shelf stable. Be about 5 months before I'm pulling garlic scape, so this way I have garlic products all year round. Hopefully this inspires you to spend your money on one less item at the grocery store. If you found this interesting, please consider liking and subscribing. Thank you so much.